Hello, everyone. Good Wednesday evening, to you. This is the Carolinas Weather Group on January 21st, about 8 o'clock here, so right on time. And we're looking forward to tonight's show. We're going to talk about emergency management and how they cooperate with media members, but some of our EM directors had some things to do tonight, so we can kind of switch up the game and hopefully bring that topic back at a later time. But tonight we're just going to talk about all things weather. To talk about so far this winter that we've experienced so far here in the Carolinas, and just get to know Rob Fowler a little bit. Rob is the chief meteorologist at WCBD in Charleston, South Carolina. And Rob, if you remember, he was with us on the Hurricane Hugo show, so our most watched show at that. So we're excited to have Rob back with us, and I think we got him booked for our Blizzard of '93 show, the Superstorm of '93 as well. So we're looking forward to getting Rob's take on that as we approach that in March. But excited to have Rob on tonight and just kind of interact and talk about weather, and we'll go from there. So before we do that, I'll let the panel introduce themselves, and I'll toss it over to Joey, and then Joey can let Daniel introduce our guest. Joey, it's all yours, man.
All right, thank you. I think I'm finally a little bit clear looking now. I guess my youngest has been using the laptop. He was sick yesterday. I think I got greasy fingerprints all over the camera lens there. But anyway, all right. First time watching the show, Joey from Catawba County Weather. You guys should know me pretty well. I made the bold statement that this Friday, Catawba County will see its first snowflakes of the year. Of course, a lot of people, let's just put this way, I've got a long list of people I'm going to tell I told you so come Friday night, but we'll see how that works out. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I'll send it on up our mountain slopes to Daniel up in McDowell County. Let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Joey. For those who may be watching for the first time, my name is Daniel Crawley. I'm based in Marion, North Carolina. I help with the McDowell Weather page on Facebook, and just looking at what's going on last couple of days, it's been really nice. The January thaw has hit the southern Appalachian region. We've had temperatures in the mid-60s yesterday. There were low 60s today with just perfect weather. And I'll be honest, considering as much cloud cover and fog and rain and mist and drizzle we've had this winter, I've actually enjoyed this last couple of days. So we'll take it. Looks like some more changes are coming up, and who knows what might happen around here as we head into the last part of January. But tonight, one of our guests, Mr. Rob Fowler from WCBD down in Charleston, South Carolina. He's the chief meteorologist at Count on 2. Rob, welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, doing fine, guys. Thanks again for the invite. Really enjoyed the Hugo special, and it's also nice to come and talk about what's going on this winter. And everything's cool in Charleston. Not literally cool. We were 72 today, so. Our average is 59, so running well above the norm. But I agree with you, Daniel. Last week with the clouds and the rain and the fog and the wedge, this was nice payback this week.
I agree 100%. Rob, what do you think about this weekend event for your area in Charleston area? Tell us a little bit what you're thinking.
Well, it's always interesting for us guys, as you know, down here along the coast. We have to keep an eye on what's going on to our east, but also what's going on to the south and west. And with this split flow in the jet stream, the southern stream pretty active, so it's picking up that storm in the Four Corners region and moving it across the Gulf, and it's going to throw a lot of rain our way. We're looking at maybe along the coast 1 to 2 inches, some higher isolated amounts. But fortunately, it looks like the temperatures will be warm enough where we're not worried about any frozen precipitation here, but we know that any deviation in that track could, change that around. But I think right now we're looking at all liquid, maybe mixed in with some sleet pellets at times, but that's about what we're looking for, and a cool down that, we're not seeing right now, obviously. So it's going to be a little bit of a shock to the system for our viewers and folks down here in the low country.
Yeah, and for us up here in the western part of the Carolinas, we're going to be on the cooler side of that storm that's going to be coming up through the coastal plain of the Carolinas on Friday. And like Joey mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of question marks on what might happen up in our part of the southeast. And I tell you, the computer models this winter have been really. One minute you see something, the next minute you see something completely different. There's a lot of hectic stuff going on. And of course, for those who follow the weather, our main computer model from here in America, the GFS, went through a recent upgrade where the resolution got increased. It's a higher resolution model. And I know a lot of people are kind of confused about that. And also a lot of people are interested in how is this model going to start working now at a higher resolution. Is there anything you'd like to mention about that, Rob?
Well, I know reading up on it and some of the backstory, a lot of the meteorologists who've been using it, in the testing stage were very pleased with it. They thought it performed very well. So I'll have to ride their coattails on this one and just hope that that's the case. And the GFS has been a model that has been flip-flopping a lot this winter. And as you mentioned, Daniel, one day it's doing one thing and one day it's doing something completely different. So. But I'm happy about the upgrade. I think it's certainly long overdue and much needed, and let's see how it performs. And if it can get up to close to the Euro, I think we'll be in business. But as you well know, wintertime here where you guys are and where I am, it's always roll the dice. The track of the storm, the depth of the cold air, the amount of moisture in place, it can either spell doom and gloom or it can miss us completely. So. This is always a challenging time of the year in weather forecasting for us.
I had a question about that GFS. When they sent it out and let it get tested, did they test it for like an entire year so that you got all 4 seasons? Do you know? I don't.
From what I understand, yes, it was in the testing stage for at least a year. I read up as much as I could, so I can't be 100% sure. But and other things they've tested in terms of hurricanes, I know I've been privy to some of that information, like the storm surge maps and those kinds of things. They were tested for quite a while, so at least full hurricane season and beyond.
Yeah, of course, it made sense to obviously do it for an entire year, but I wasn't 100% sure that they did that. So.
Rob, that's something we kind of get into our discussion here. We're talking a little bit about models. I know for us, we have a more condensed forecast area than what you do, where you cover 20-some counties. How frustrating is it for you to look at the models and they go from the 6Z saying this is going to happen to 18Z? It's totally different. And I don't want to say unfortunately, but unfortunately and then fortunately, the public has access to this data too. So They interpret it one way, we see it as another way, and to us, I know with our small area, it can be frustrating, but you have a much larger viewing area. How frustrating is it to say, well, you said rain yesterday, now you're saying sleet? How frustrating is it for you guys in the media world where you have 20-some counties to cover? How frustrating is it to see the disparity in the models?
It is frustrating, and when you're doing it day in and day out, I still tell people when I go do school visits and church talks, and of course the running joke for us weathermen is, I wish I had a job where I'm right half the time and still get paid, But as you guys know, and you watch this day in and day out, I'm really amazed at how good the models really are. Yes, they do flip-flop, but if you kind of look at the trends in the ensemble, you can usually get a middle ground that you can kind of hang your hat on and try to forecast and present in that way that, yes, we're going to get rain, the timing may be off a little bit, but we still feel pretty confident this is going to happen. We also have a model that's built into our computer system, WSI, called the RPM, and the RPM is a pretty good model as well. So that gives us another look, another possible model that we can use either in comparison with or in harmony with the GFS of the Euro. So there's a lot of things at our disposal, and it's really just up to us, the meteorologist, on a daily basis to decide which one is performing the best. And then, as you guys know, you got to go out there and do it. You can't hem-haw. You can't sit on the fence too long. People want to know, and you got to give them that information.
You're right, Rob. And I guess one thing is we all have smartphones now. Our iPhone, our weather app could go, like today. The only time I use my weather app on my phone is to see what the temperature is outside. It went from 37 and snowing on Monday to the latest update was like 45 and the sun was out. So, unfortunately, our technology can get the best of us sometimes. But if you really dig into it and put your fingers into it like we do, you have to forecast off trends and ensembles like you're talking about. And if you can see that guidance, it makes it a lot more easier than the every day run of the mill your weather app on your phone saying it's going to do this and then change its mind.
Yeah, and you guys know, and the problem with the phones, like this right here, is these apps are great for what you say, get a quick temperature, but there's really not that human element. So you just start plucking things off a model, and it puts an icon showing rain. Well, maybe the chance of rain is 20, 30%, but there's a backstory that you need to kind of get across while you're forecasting. That yes, there's 20, 30%, but we don't think it's going to be an all-day rain. We don't think it's going to be heavy rain. Those kinds of things you don't get to, disseminate through an app. People just assume it's going to rain all day because that's what the icon says on Friday. It's going to rain. So we have a lot of damage control, if you will, when it comes to the apps to try to get the real story across, and that's why I hopefully encourage people to watch the local TV weather in their market to get the real story.
Yeah, that's most definitely because they see that rain and now they're thinking that their whole day is going to be a washout, and it could only be raining from 7 to 9 in the morning. The front moves out and it's sunny by lunchtime. So.
Yeah, a great example of what we've got going on here this weekend is based on the current movement and the trends. We're going to get rain Friday, probably into midday Saturday, but then if everything moves on, we'll clear out. We'll get some downsloping, and we might actually see a decent afternoon on Saturday. So by no means a washout for Saturday, but right now we're showing that rain icon, so it looks like yes, Saturday is going to be a no play day, if you will.
Correct. Guys, you guys have anything to? I know we're kind of just going off the cusp tonight. Do you have anything to add to that? All right, I guess not. Another question, Rob. Let's take into consideration what is the low country of South Carolina? What is a normal? I hate to use the word normal, but what is an average winter like down in the low country? I mean, temperature-wise, precip-wise, maybe even wintry precip-wise. What do you guys look at normally down there?
That's a great question because we have a lot of people moving into the low country, and they're coming from all over the country. So when they come up to me, they want to know what is a winter like for us. And typically most of our days in the winter are in the 60s for a high. Now the average high is probably a little less than that, but here we had 72 today, and by Friday we'll be 52. So you average that out. The lows, generally in the 30s, mid to upper 30s. We don't get too many freezing days. And rainfall, generally we get, about 8, 9, 10 inches during the 3 meteorological winter months total. And winter precipitation, not every year, but probably one, significant event every 3 years or so. That doesn't mean that, we've already had some flurries this year, but really significant. It's probably once in every 3 years we might get ice or maybe get a little more significant snowfall. But our winters here are just very pleasant. Being near the ocean, it's we've got fairly mild conditions, so we don't really get a harsh winter. Having said that, we've already been as low as 17 this winter, and we had a wind chill a couple of weeks ago of 3 above, which for us is that might as well be the North Pole. It was cold.
I have a funny story. I have some friends who he works for the Coast Guard, and they moved from Key Largo, Florida, up to Charleston. Back in September, and she was telling me, or they were telling me, it's like, man, they told us that our winters were fairly mild here in South Carolina, so we were looking forward to it until when the wind chill was down to down to 3 degrees and 17 as a low, and she said, that's not mild compared to my standards. So I was like, yeah, that was just kind of one of those off the wall days. That's not a normal winter day for Charleston, South Carolina. So it is a pleasant environment to be in down there. I mean, you don't have those harsh winter nights where it's down in the 20s and teens like we do up here in the western part of North Carolina.
And I'll be honest with you guys, people down here tend not to dress for the weather. So when they act like it's very cold and they're complaining about how cold it is, they're generally walking out with just a light jacket on and not layering. So yes, it is going to be cold to them. But in reality, if they did layer and did wear the gloves and the hats and the thick socks, the wool socks, they probably would not be as cold. So a lot of it is the way we dress here, and I think it's all about perception and saying, I'm tough, I can handle this. It's 40 degrees, I'll be okay. But 40 degrees with a good stiff 20, 25 mile an hour wind is a whole different story.
That's right.
Hey, Rob, going into this winter, one of the things we talked about, a lot of us in the meteorology community, is that a weak El Nino is going to develop.
Right.
And while we've not had like abnormally high amounts, it seems like it's been fairly active. I was looking for some maps actually, and I wasn't able to in the last few minutes. But for your area, how much precip have you picked up in say the last 30 to 60 days?
Well, we had over 3 inches, close to 4 inches in December, and so far in January we haven't had that much. We're probably going to average below normal in January, but November, which is one of our drier months of the year, we had a very dry November up until the last few days, and then all of a sudden we had a couple of deluge. So that really kind of skewed the precipitation amounts. But yes, during an El Nino winter, we typically do see more precipitation, thus leads to cooler than normal temperatures just because of the better chance of the clouds and the rain. So I would say it hasn't been abnormally wet, but we have had some pretty decent events where when we did get rain, we actually got a good amount of rain in a short amount of time, and even had some thunderstorms too. A couple of nights we were awakened about 4:30 in the morning by some thunderstorms as a cold front came on by and interacted with the sea breeze and kind of kicked things up a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when you think El Nino, you think all this crazy amounts of rain like we had in 1998, and that's just, that's kind of an extreme case. But, I would have to agree with you, just looking at the way the pattern has been across the southern part of the U.S., it's got that definite weak El Nino look.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely agree, and we'll see. I mean, like I said, a lot of people always ask me the first question when you go to a school. They want to know, is it going to snow this winter? And this goes, all the way back to November as we get into meteorological winter in December. But it is here. It's such a crapshoot. It just really is. There's so much involved in the timing and the amount of moisture available, the cold air, how deep it is, and where the 540 line is. I mean, it really is. In a way, it's kind of fun to forecast, just because eventually it's going to hit. Just finding out when that's going to be is that challenge that kind of fuels all of us. But at the same time, having gone through 2 ice storms last year, it's really no fun when you lose power for a good amount of time and you're cold and nobody can drive and the kids have to make up the school day. So it sounds glamorous, but in reality, as you well know, it's after snow falls for a little while, then it gets dirty and ugly and crunchy, and then it's no fun anymore.
That's it. And a lot of people, I mean, even here in Western North Carolina, Daniel and Joey can attest to this. We're not as prepared as some of our mountain counties are, but I can imagine you guys, road crew-wise, scraper-wise, salt and slag, I mean, you guys are nowhere near prepared for anything like that down in your area.
No, we don't have any of that. So when we have ice and we have snow, there's no way. It's just like we don't have tornado sirens down here, and you always ask that question, and I know that'll be a good question for the EMs when we have that show. But the reason, and I hate to, you can't put a price on a human life, but the expense of maintaining and building a network of tornado sirens, does it really offset the frequency that we have these events? Same thing with ice and snow. It doesn't happen very often, so in the budgets they're not going to put in for the big vehicles to move it around and the plows and the salt and all those kinds of things. But so what I always chuckled, one of the ice events we had a few years ago, they were spreading sand on the ice patches on our bridge. And for those of you who haven't been to Charleston, we have a big old bridge called the Ravenel Bridge that connects the peninsula, downtown Charleston, with where we are east of the Cooper over the Cooper River. And they put sand on some of the ice patches, and there was a gusty wind up there, and of course that sand was being blown off the ice patches and really wasn't doing anything. But we just don't have the equipment, and we don't need the equipment typically in an average year to maintain any icy spots that we have maybe once every 2 or 3 or 4 years, or even less frequent than that.
If I ever move to Charleston and there becomes an ice event where I can't get over that bridge to Sullivan's Island to get me a cheeseburger at Poe's, I will be upset. I might even buy them a truck.
Oh, Joey, you're talking my language now. Now, what Joey's talking about is a great restaurant over on Sullivan's Island called Poe's, and kind of after Edgar Allan Poe, but they serve some gourmet burgers that are to die for. So come on over. We'll do dinner sometime.
Is it as good as Heyman's?
Oh yeah, yeah, probably so. Yeah, there's another place called Melvin's down here. They serve barbecue, but they do some killer cheeseburgers as well. So,
Poe's had the second best pimento cheeseburger I've ever had. They're second. There actually is a place in Greensboro that has it beat, believe it or not. And I didn't think it could be beat until I had that burger. But yeah, I had a friend that was stationed in the military at the Air Force Base there in Charleston for many years. So when we went down, we had to go down. My wife had an author event down there at the park that I can't remember the name of at the moment. But anyway, we had an author event down there where she had to do a book signing. So she sent us to a bunch of different local eats. She sent us out to Post, the Early Bird Diner.
Okay.
Couple other places that I can't recall right now, but yeah, so I got a little bit of a food tour for the 2 days I was down there.
Well, there's a lot of food down here, just like your part of the world. I mean, you got some great barbecue and great places to eat, but yeah, back to what Joey was talking about, the bridge shutting it down. I mean, we had an instance last year where the bridge was shut down, and it was pretty scary because number one, in fact I was the only media that got a chance to go up on the bridge while it was shut down. And got with our local police department, and one of the officers drove me up there, and he was fishtailing. So you can imagine if there was 4 lanes of traffic on there would have been a lot of accidents. But what happened was, and I don't think this will happen again, is they actually opened up the bridge probably a little sooner than they should have because there were still chunks of ice on the big cables, and when those melted, all of a sudden chunks of ice were falling onto cars and trucks going over the bridge, and right away they shut it right back down. But we're very lucky, guys, that no one was injured seriously or, God forbid, killed, because that was a very scary situation. But I guarantee you that won't happen again. That was the first time since the bridge has been in existence for 9 years that we had ever had that situation. So it wasn't something we had seen before.
Yeah, the weekend that we were down there was actually just a couple of weeks after the big ice event that got a bunch of South Carolina. So on the way down, we saw I told Stacy when I said I've seen tornadoes do less damage.
Yeah.
Than what that. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, there was some places where almost every tree for half a mile were down. So yeah, it was definitely. I don't think you're gonna have too many more events quite like that. But yeah, that was definitely a big one.
Yeah, it was, and again, something we don't see very often. But some areas were without power for a week or up to 10 days, and for us here, that's unusual. And I had a chance myself to go up and be in the areas really hit hard when the ice was falling out of the trees, and it was like it was raining, sleeting ice, if you will, from the trees. And yes, if you still come down 26 into Charleston, you'll see trees on the side of the road bent, and that's mainly because of the weight of the ice.
Well, speaking of ice and stuff, you guys, in some of your forecast area, back at the start of November, had a little episode with some snow flurries and even some accumulating snow out towards Columbia.
Yeah, I do remember that. We had a few flurries here, but didn't get the brunt of that. But yeah, that's November typically for us is a month where we're not looking for any winter weather, and for that to happen. Of course, then, Scotty, then people automatically are jumping on the bandwagon saying, well, because this is happening now, that means it's going to be a long, cold, hard winter. And we know that you can't always equate that. Each event is separate, and even though you can look at the overall, synoptic scale pattern, that doesn't always mean that one thing is going to equal another later on in the winter.
That was, I think, really just a freak storm. I mean, we saw that thing coming in, and Joey and I actually was up in Roll Mountain, Tennessee, doing some footage, and Ricky and his team was in another part. They went to more outside of Asheville, and we kind of met up in the middle. But that storm produced, what was it, about 8 inches up in the mountains where we were at, Joey. Then it produced 2 to 3 inches over the Greenville, South Carolina area, and then into Columbia. And then I've seen reports as far down as the low country of seeing some flurries and stuff like that. So a pretty intense little system for the start of November.
Yeah, I remember that.
Scotty never remembers the place we were at. It was Carver's Gap, Scotty.
That's right, Carver's Gap. I can never remember the name of that place. I know we went to Roll Mountain, and we had to go over Roll Mountain to go there. So.
True, we did. We did.
Hey,
Well,
I have a. Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and Daniel and you and I talked off camera, and we can get into this later if you like. But it's kind of an interesting date in our history and many, cities' history. This date 30 years ago, January 21st of 1985, for Charleston and many other locations, is the all-time record low temperatures set, not just for cities but for states. Our state record was set on this date in 1985 at Caesar's Head, 19 below, and here in Charleston, North Charleston, the airport, where we keep the official records, got down to 6, and that's as cold as we've ever officially been here in Charleston.
The North Carolina record was set that day too,
Yep.
negative 34 on Mount Mitchell.
Yep.
Yeah, that was definitely a historic cold outbreak, and in today's world, we use the word and the phrase polar vortex. Well, that might have been the closest thing to it. In fact, I pulled up on here on Weather Underground. They have a listing on that event, and just looking at some of these temperatures, and I'll share the screen right now. Look at even like at Florida, Apalachicola 9 degrees, Jacksonville 7 degrees. Of course, you guys in South Carolina, you said Charleston got the 6. Some of the totals up in the southern Appalachian region, Bristol, Tennessee, minus 21, all-time coldest temperatures ever. And that's, we had that cold outbreak we had this last winter, and that in itself was amazing. But to see this is even just more incredible.
Yeah, I'm hoping these records will never be broken. But you saw Charleston at 6. I happened to be working at WTOC in Savannah at the time, and we got down to 3 in Savannah. And I remember we were all over the place covering the burst pipes. There's a lot of beautiful fountains in Savannah. Of course, they all were frozen over, giving you that beautiful winter wonderland that we only see in the movie Frozen these days. But
Yeah, looking at that, at least was it 6 degrees in Savannah, Georgia, 3 degrees on Cape Hatteras, and then with I can imagine the winds coming in off the ocean. That must have felt awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty chilly. I remember that. I was a young meteorologist at the time, and that was one of the bigger events that I had to cover. But it got to be more of a pain because so many businesses didn't have water, and a lot of the city didn't have water, and it just got to be just an unbelievable mess in Savannah that day.
Rob, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
And if there's ever a case of just cold being so extreme to cripple an area, that would be it, especially here in the South. Because like you said, we struggle when it's in the teens and 20s. I can only imagine when it's below 0 and even single digits down on the coast.
Yeah, it was. I remember it being very cold. I grew up in Atlanta, and one of the biggest ice storms I can remember when I was 13 in 1973. And that was the same year a lot of folks got snow. In fact, we had a record snowfall here in Charleston. But we were out of school for about a week, and it was one of the bigger ice storms in Atlanta's history back in 1973.
Speaking of ice storms in Atlanta, because it's happened in Atlanta, we're thought about doing this topic for an entire show while we're talking about winter weather, and we just had to experience this up here, me and Scotty and Daniel. Can you recall any major freezing fog events in your area?
There have been a few. I can't really pick them out specifically, but I know we've had a few, and that's kind of weird for us too, But any particular, event, I can't really give you a date. I just remember a couple of times where we did have observations showing, frozen fog and visibility's reduced and those kinds of things. But it obviously doesn't happen here very often.
That is something that always seems to catch everybody off guard. The other morning, we had all the buses on the road. There were accidents everywhere here in my county, and nobody thought to delay school for a 28-degree foggy morning. So
yeah,
here we were.
Yeah. And that's a great topic that you guys have to deal with probably more than us, being the elevation you are and the I was just in the upstate of South Carolina, and my wife and I were driving. She goes, I didn't realize it was so hilly. We don't get to that part of the state a lot, but that's nothing compared to Western North Carolina. But still, when we're in the low country, it's flat here. But we have bridges and overpasses. We have a lot of waterways that we have to get over. So one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with when we have potential of ice is closing schools and whether to run the buses or not. Well, it's fine at my house, but Charleston County is a pretty long county that encompasses, a lot of areas, again, that have to go over bridges and overpasses where it may not be as safe. So you close the whole county school system down because of that reason.
Yeah, we had a show just 2 weeks ago about talking about the process of what school officials have to do to close schools and stuff like that. One thing, Rob, that I would like to hit on, I don't think a lot of people really take into notion, because when you say wintertime, you obviously think it's snow, sleet, ice. But the South is known to have a kind of a peak in severe weather in the wintertime. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how that is for your part of South Carolina. I know up here 3 years ago on January 11th, we had an EF2 tornado that came through. So, I mean, severe weather is a real possibility even in the wintertime.
Absolutely. I mean, for many, like the tornado belt across Dixie, as they call it, there's a February maximum also that we have to keep an eye on too. So when you enter, mix the cold air coming in, you've got the warm Gulf air coming in, you've got, split flow in the jet stream, you've got so much energy going on, you have the warmer than normal ocean temperatures possibly, all of that can work in to create severe weather. So yeah, there have been many, like I said, recently we had thunderstorms. The temperature was probably in the 40s and 50s, but there was enough energy to kick off that thunder and lightning. So, in fact, we're even looking at this track of this low coming up over Friday, that if it does track a little bit farther inland and taps some of the warmer Gulf waters and Atlantic waters and wraps it in, that we also could see the potential for severe weather. So it is. January and February, some of the, a few years, guys, happened in Orlando. It was either January or February, I can't remember, but it was a major tornado outbreak. And I'll never forget that because we had teamed with Midland Radio to sell weather radios, and we went out and had some seminars and sold thousands of weather radios because of that event, because people, it just scared the living daylights out of them that could happen in the winter in the South.
Yeah, I've got a graphic here, and this is data that's been collected over the past several years of tornadoes, and you can see Mississippi, Alabama, and then, like you said, over here in Orlando and Tampa Bay area, a peak in tornadoes that's actually occurred. And then South Carolina, I'm not sure what county that is.
That is Orangeburg County.
I should have done my research. Orangeburg County, it seems to have a more elevated risk of some wintertime tornadoes as well.
You know what's interesting, Scotty? I'm looking at your map, and our traditional our little North Carolina foothills tornado alley.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, there's you got
Caldwell and Rutherford.
Yeah, which is actually west of it. Usually it's the Cleveland, Lincoln, Southeast Catawba County, which are nothing right there.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting little note there. I know.
Yeah, but Rob, Orangeburg County, like you said, it looks like a spike maybe in tornadic development.
Yeah, and I'd have to look. Yeah, I have to look at the stats and just see. Maybe in the whole scheme of things they've had one or two, but that's more than everybody around them. But I do know that we have we have had issues in the winter, and we do have to worry about that in January and February, just like we have to worry. Well, today's a great example. We were 72 degrees, and if everything had been in place, we could have seen severe weather today had we had that storm coming in right now with as warm as we've been. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but that certainly is something that we have to keep an eye on. And like I mentioned, before we had the weather apps and a lot of weather radios on the phone, sales of weather radios were just through the roof because of a big event, that outbreak. I think it may have killed 22 people down in Orlando at night. It happened in the middle of the night.
Speaking of another kind of severe weather we get in the wintertime, what about nor'easters? We know that a lot of them kind of bomb out right there off the coast of your area, and by that I mean get a lot stronger quickly.
Right.
For those who don't know, but don't want to use too many of our terms. I know other people don't understand sometimes, but yeah, they tend to develop and get a lot stronger right there. How do those affect the Charleston area?
Well, fortunately for us, Joey, a lot of times they do bomb out either east or northeast of us, so not to our south. So that's the best news. That by the time they pass our coast, not that they're weakening, they're getting stronger. But for us, the impact of the influence is kind of passed us by. We do get that the backside flow. The winds generally do pick up. And it does drag in some cold air, and that's obviously when we would see our best chance for, some measurable frozen precipitation. But most of the ones I've had to deal with, just have a cold day here or there, and then it moves on. As long as it's moving, then that's good for us. But I haven't seen too many that have really bombed out close enough to our coast to, present a major issue. But it does happen, just not that frequently.
Yeah. Now, Rob, if your area covered the North Carolina Outer Banks, it would be a whole different stuff. We'd have a whole different story going right now.
That kind of equates also to hurricane season when you see those storms that kind of pass us by and loses their grip on us, but then all of a sudden tightens the grip on eastern North Carolina. So same kind of thing happens in the winter as well. But I've seen many a storm bomb out off our coast and then head right up the Mid-Atlantic region, so North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, those areas really get it hard.
A quick footnote about a nor'easter. I actually, a good friend of my family's, purchased a house that was used for the filming of Knights of Rodanthe. A lot of people don't realize that house is the last storm that got it condemned was actually caused by a nor'easter. Most people think it was a hurricane.
Right.
But it was actually a nor'easter, and the Outer Banks have had damage, sometimes a lot worse than a lot of hurricanes that they've experienced there. Just especially water rise with nor'easters. It's pretty drastic up in that area.
Yeah, and our big problem here with those, just like you guys along your Outer Banks, is erosion. It's a losing battle with Mother Nature. I was talking to we have a renourishment program, and it costs millions of dollars to do this. But generally, every 8 years they have to do this, and because these nor'easters and storms off the coast just completely eat away at our coastline, and so to get that sand back in place, you got to pump from offshore back onshore, and it's a lot of money and a lot of time, and as we well know, it's most likely a losing battle. But there's just something about walking out to the edge of America and looking out of the ocean, knowing that the next landmass is thousands of miles away.
Hey, let's kind of change directions here a little bit. We were talking earlier about and talking about this storm that's coming up for us Friday. For us here in the interior Carolinas, the low pressure track is just about a perfect track for snow in the mountains, foothills, North Carolina, western Piedmont. But we're not going to have any cold air in place to make it a sure thing. There's a lot of questions right now. And it seems like we've been having that problem this winter. We've had cold air, but it's quickly just rushed out, and it's been moderated by warmer air. My question, and I'd like for Rob to answer, and I have Scotty to answer it too, what is it going to take the rest of this winter for us snow lovers in the South, and we'll include your area, and we'll include up here in the mountains and foothills and Piedmont, what is it going to take to get everything just right to get a big winter weather event?
Well, I think it's a lot of timing, and it's the track of the low. If the low is tracking a little farther south, then you guys would get dumped on quite a bit, and because I think there's going to be cold enough air wrapping in, but I think it's a matter of the track is going to be a little farther north for you guys to get a tremendous amount of snow, and certainly too far north for us to get snow or any ice. But what I've seen in your part of the world and my part of the world is a lot of it is the track of the storm. You got to get a little bit lower, a little farther south. That will help to drag that cold air in and make it pretty deep and not as shallow. And then the moisture's got to be there too. And I think everything would be perfect if the track of the storm was a little bit farther south, and then off the East Coast, it would be able to drag that cold air all the way through you guys and into us as well.
A Midwest snowpack would help too.
Yeah, that's true. That tends to keep it colder. I used to do weather in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and you could see these air masses coming over, and they don't modify up there because there's plenty of snowpack. So not like here where if there's not a lot of snow upstream, these air masses coming in can modify somewhat, and they don't get as cold because of that reason. You don't have that snowpack.
To me, it just seems like we've had the cold air in place, throughout this month. But to me, it just overall, I mean, just looking over the whole country in general, we've just not had a lot of precip to work with. I mean,
Right.
we're normal to hear of the big snowstorms that affect the Midwest and the Northeast, but we haven't even really had that this year. I mean, it just seems like it's kind of been a lull in precipitation wise. I mean, we've had the cold air there, but precip wise, it's just not been there. And unfortunately, it's kind of the roles have reversed now with this storm, with almost a perfect storm track for the Southeast. We just don't have that cold air coming in before the storm gets here, and it's just our friend and partner, and I'm sure you know him as well, Rob, Brad Panovich. He did a video blog today, and he held up puzzle pieces. He said you got to be able to put all these together to get a winter storm in the Southeast, and he says we've got them on the table, but somehow, some way, we're not just finding a way for them to fit together, and that's been our problem. Last year we had the cold air, and towards the end part of winter time, we had the precip to mix up with it. You and I and Daniel, I think, was on. We were talking off camera last year for the western part of North Carolina and upstate of South Carolina. It was January 25th before we had a measurable snowfall. So a lot of people, I myself, everybody calls me a snow optimist. I love snow. It just brings the kid out in me. But it seems like we want to give up on this winter, and it just seems like we can't get things together. But I still am promised by looking at the long range models and stuff. It seems like we're going to have a southern jet that's going to remain active, and sooner or later that cold air has got to come out of Canada. It's got to. I mean, it seems like it's going to happen. It's just I think we're all wanting it to happen now, and it's going to take a little bit.
And for many places, February is the snowiest month. So, and I know we've had record snows here in Charleston in February. Two of our bigger snows have happened in February. So, we've still got a long winter yet to come. And like Brad was talking about, like the puzzle, it's kind of like the timing also. You have the pieces in place, but if everything doesn't fit perfectly together, you're just going to get a cold rain, maybe mixed in with a few flakes, maybe a couple of ice pellets, but that's just about it. Now there's significant snowfall. But I still have hope. There's still plenty of time in this winter. Even though down here, guys, people kind of get tired. They move down to this part of the world to get away from all of that. So they would rather not have any snow or ice. They would much rather have weather to go play golf.
Rob, I'll give you a scary thing. We're talking snow up here for Friday morning. And, of course, no matter whether we say it's just going to be falling from the sky, there's not going to be any road issues. All the kids and half the parents here, it's going to snow. Me and Scotty actually have a elementary school presentation to do Friday morning. So if it doesn't snow, we're gonna have to answer to the hardest critics out there.
That's right.
I emailed the teacher today, and I said, "Listen, I just want you to know, we're thinking it's going to snow Friday morning, so you may want to have a backup plan if we were to have to cancel school or something like that." And so the biggest thing is going in and seeing 80 fifth graders disappointed faces because there's no snow on the ground. So.
Yeah, and I have that issue here. We talk to a lot of schools, and of course the kids, the first thing they want to know is snow. And down here we don't have these built-in snow days, so I always have to remind them that it'll be nice to be out a day or two or three or four, whatever, but you have to make up those days. So, and they usually tack that on to the end of the school year. So when you start throwing reality at them, then all of a sudden maybe a snowstorm is not that enticing, and they have to go to school into their summer break.
That dreaded Saturday morning school.
Yes.
That turns the faces of every child.
Yes.
They're like snow, and you're like, you're gonna have to make it up on Saturday. They're like, oh.
Nope.
Then again, I really hate to beat this dead horse, but I know it makes Rob's job hard, and it makes our job hard to a point because we still have to service the public. But everybody's got access to all these Euro and GFS models 7 to 10 days out, and it paints this big old snowstorm, and then everybody gets so excited about it, and then when the time comes closer, that storm goes away, and then you have to explain, well, can't really trust something that's 7 to 10 days out. So.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things we have to do, and I am so excited that people do have access because I don't know how you guys have felt about this, but I think people when they call and they email and they Facebook you, I mean they're very educated. They can talk your language and they understand. It's just by not doing it every single day and watching the trends, and if you just look at one model and jump on that solution, not knowing what the history has been, that's where the problems come in, and they just grab onto one model and say, well, this model said, the NAM says this, and not realizing that the 3 model runs before were something completely different. So that's where we come in, and we have to kind of diffuse those rumors. But it's tough. I mean, with social media, as you well know, once it's on Facebook, it's the gospel. So
That's right.
there's nothing you can say to dispel any rumors. So, as I mentioned, that damage control is something that we have to do quite a bit of, just saying, wait a second, slow down, folks. Don't spread this because this isn't exactly what's going to happen.
That's it, yeah. And then you have the totally opposite where it's not going to snow because we've always been wrong and we can never get it right, and then it snows and they're like, oh, maybe we do believe you.
And everybody only sees what's outside their window, and we cover a pretty large area here, and where it might be doing something in one place, it may be different in another, but the perception is you are wrong because not everybody is seeing the same conditions.
Yeah, or it didn't snow the exact 3 inches at their house,
Right.
The broad span of 1 to 3 inches, well, everybody thinks it's going to be 3 inches at their house, and they get an inch, and they get upset about that too. So
I'm always reminded by a hurricane conference I went to many years ago, and Dr. Neil Frank, who at one time was the Hurricane Center director, and I think it was Gloria back in 1985, and he got a letter, and someone was really complaining about their house wasn't.
I think Rob's internet's froze up. All right, well, Rob's internet may have been froze up. We were talking just how good the quality was before the show started. So
Yeah, we jinxed them. I'm sorry, Rob.
well, hopefully we'll get it figured out. But guys, Rob's talking about the chance of that storm track, possibility. That's the key to the story here, and that's something that we all three have been discussing, off air. Is just it's going to take 30 to 50 miles, and it can really swing the weather from one way to the other.
I totally agree, and kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, we don't have a really good fresh area of cold air from the north pressing down to give us the cold air. So it like you said, it's going to be just about exclusively based on the surface low track and the track at say 5,000 feet. And I just I'm like you, Scotty. I love snow, and just to see the track of the system for our part of the country, 9 times out of 10, man, people are getting excited. But it's very marginal right now, and it just seemed like it's been like that all winter. At least this first half of the winter, we've had cold air. We had that really cold outbreak in November. We had the cold air a couple weeks ago, but it just seems like every time we have the cold air, it just sweeps right back out, and the moisture comes in right behind it. And again, like Rob said, maybe at some point it's going to mix and finally come together.
Yeah, like you said, 9 times out of 10, this storm track puts a pretty decent snowfall for our area, which is another reason why, even though the models are borderline, history tells us that we need to lean a little this way because most of the time this is this is our snow.
That's right. And Joey and Daniel, and hopefully Rob can join us back, but this is something I'd love to talk to him about as well, is we have to rely on the models, but we can't put all our eggs in that basket because you do have to go off of climatologically speaking, what has this track done the past 10 storms? What has it produced for us? We're familiar with this track. This track has happened in the Western Carolinas, upstate South Carolina, southeast or southwest Virginia forever. I mean, we've seen this track. This is our classic snow track. So as we see the model runs, I mean, we do have to put we have to put a lot of our eggs in the model basket, but we also have to look at what has that done in the past to kind of help us with that forecast.
I totally agree, and I think that's one thing when you forecast weather. If you go exclusively off model data, most time you might get right, and sometimes you're gonna get burned. And it's funny. Ironically, we talk about the computer models. I was looking at this afternoon's European computer model, and of course we're really geeking out here at this time. But I was looking at the model earlier, and if you look at the way the temperature profile is set up from the surface to like 5,000 feet, it is actually that climate, that perfect climo track for our area. And all the other models are really, not showing that. They're showing warmer air aloft. But when you see the one model showing that, you got to always keep that in the back of your mind.
And Rob's joining us back. And Rob, we're kind of
sorry about that, guys.
Oh, that's okay. We feel like we jinxed you because we were talking about how good the connection was earlier. But we're talking about model and the model data that we receive and how we do have to put a lot of the eggs in the basket to trust model data. But you also have to look at prior experiences of what did this storm track do the past 10 storms. And you have to base, I'm not going to say a lot of your forecast, but you have to base a little bit of your forecast off of prior knowledge.
I think experience is probably not something that we take lightly. I mean, I know it's very important, and I think living in a place, and I think that's, if you look at successful meteorologists, TV meteorologists, and those at the Weather Service or anywhere else, I think their success rate is probably increased by staying in a place for a while and looking at these trends and knowing what can happen, what has happened, and put that to good use, your education, your knowledge of the area. I'll be honest with you guys, if I came to your neck of the woods and forecast the weather, you would probably watch me and say, this guy may or may not have, what it takes to get the job done because he doesn't really understand it as much. You can look at books all day long, but you got to live it. And whereas down here, I've been here so long that now I can kind of, I get it. So I agree, Scotty. I think the models are important, your experience is important, and your know-how and having lived through events, knowing what might happen based on any given factors, the track of the storm, the moisture, all those kinds of things will come into play. And that's going to make you a better forecaster.
The thing we were actually just talking about right before, right there after we lost you, we were mentioning how this storm track that we're looking at now, 9 out of 10 times, the Western Carolinas are talking a pretty decent snow out of this. But this time the models are marginal. They're right there at that 33, 34 degrees and things like that. And I was just saying that 9 out of 10 times we get snow, that makes me want to lean to say, you know what, and we might be a degree off, but what's going to really happen,
And that's where you lay out the the scenarios for your viewers and your listeners and for you guys. Hey, this could happen. If we just get a degree or two colder, or if the track of the low is 50, 100 miles farther south, or whatever it might be, this is going to happen. So you've got to keep that in mind. You don't want them to be surprised, but at the same time, you've got to give them your expertise and give them your best guess, your best shot, if you will, of what might have happened, because it's going to impact them one way or the other.
And, also, you talk about models, you kind of have to look at a model and does it have a bias sometimes. And, going back to the comment I made earlier about GFS with the recent upgrade, we're kind of in that period right now with it just out and running as the operational model. We're kind of finding out what the bias is in that model. So that is something that, as we go through this winter and then we head into the warmer part of 2015, that's something that we're going to really learn as forecasters a lot about that model and about, how does it compare to, say, the previous version of that model or compared to other models.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot that we're going to learn from this, and in the testing stage, from what I understand, those who tested it were very impressed with the new GFS, and we'll have to wait and see. It's still a wait and see because we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it in action for different times of the year and different events. So let's see how it performs, and this will be a good test this weekend to see exactly how it's performing here. The Euro and the GFS are relatively close together, so. Let's see which one comes into play. In a way, what happened during Hurricane Sandy in 2012 was maybe a blessing. It kind of gave us the kick in the gut or the kick in the pants to to step up to the plate and say, we got to do something. We got to spend money. We got to get back up to speed, and we got to get these models, the American models, where they should be.
And I know for you, Rob, this summer will be huge. When you get into hurricane season, you guys are going to be looking at that and seeing how that performs.
Oh, you bet. I mean, obviously, we live and die with those models, and they've gotten so good, and the grids are so tight now, and the resolution's so, finite that, I'm even amazed at how accurate they can be. Now, the intensity, that's a whole different story, but the track of the storm, they keep getting better and better and better.
Speaking of looking forward towards hurricane season, have you been able to play around or experiment a little bit with the new storm surge forecasts that are going to be starting to be issued during hurricane season?
We've had a couple of seminars with our local National Weather Service guys in the testing stage, and they kind of laid it out for us. So I really haven't had a chance to really kind of mess around with it. But I know coming up soon we will. We're going to delve into it, as we get closer to hurricane season. I always like, after November 30th, because I can kind of take a deep breath, and another year has passed us by. But before you know it, it's right back on your doorstep. So we're getting close to that.
Yeah, and that it seems like a lot of people, when they think of hurricane, they think of the wind as the most devastating aspect of a hurricane. But you guys who live on the coast know that storm surge is the biggest issue that you guys have to contend with.
Yeah, the biggest loss of life deals with storm surge. But another issue is, a lot of people kind of discount rainfall. But around here we flood when, during a new or a full moon cycle, just with a regular, average rainfall. I mean, it could be devastating to this area. So, if we get tremendous amount of rainfall in a slow-moving storm, that can create as much damage as many hurricanes that might be a higher category. But, the rainfall and that, in turn, gusty winds can blow trees down. It gets to be a mess down here, because that's why we're called the Low Country.
So I guess it's safe to say if we want to come down and ride out a hurricane that may affect the Low Country, maybe we can come and hang out with you for a little while.
Yeah, come on down. We've got a building that we all stay in. It's they tell me it can withstand a Category 4. We've had the building 12 years, so we've never had to test that out. I'm not sure I want to be the guinea pig in here when that happens, but if need be, this is my job, and we'll be here, and we're raised up a little bit, so we've got a pretty good fortress here to take on the next storm, whenever that will be.
I got you on that guinea pig. I'm game.
Joey wants to be out on the actual beach as the eye wall approaches, so we'll stick him out there.
Are you sure, Joey? I had a chance to cover Hurricane Isabel in 2003, and I was at Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, and the next day when Hurricane Isabel came ashore, and I thought, I'm tough, but when you get hit with pelts, little small grains of sand at 100 miles an hour, it's no fun. No fun at all.
I've done a high-end tropical storm on the beach, but I've not done my hurricane yet. So it's the bucket list. Hey, listen, I'm not stupid. we're not talking about Category 3, 4, 5. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
but a Category 1 hurricane, I'm gonna have to take my chances to scratch it off my bucket list.
Well, if I can, I'll tell you kind of a funny story about Isabel. Isabel passed us by, and typically, we don't rest easy until it's above our latitude. The chances of it coming west or southwest are pretty remote most of the time. So my boss called me the day after Isabel crossed our latitude and said, how soon can you pack a bag? And I said, well, it depends on where I'm going. He said, we're sending you to Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. I said, isn't that where Isabel's supposed to make landfall the next day at noon? He said, yes. He said, do you want to go cover it? I said, sure. So we drove up to Wrightsville Beach. We did a live remote satellite shot from Wrightsville Beach in the evening before the landfall. Then we had to head up to Atlantic Beach for an 11 o'clock live shot. We were meeting a satellite truck from NBC there. And someone had told us that you could cut through Camp Lejeune and save about an hour and a half. If you're familiar with that part of the world, you had to go around Camp Lejeune if you took the long way around. So we literally drove right up to the guard gate at Camp Lejeune, And the guard came out and said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Well, someone told us we could cut through." And they said, "Normally you could, but we're on hurricane lockdown. Nobody on the base, nobody off the base. So now we have to go the long way." And to make a long story short, we had to catch this satellite truck by a certain time, and we knew we were going to be late. So we get to Atlantic Beach, and there are two police officers right there at the causeway, nose to nose. And the officer comes up and says, "I know where you're going, but you're going down there at your own risk." I said, "I understand, officer." So we're really running late. So my photographer floored it when they let us over the causeway. I think it was 35 miles an hour. She was probably driving 60 because we thought all the police had gone somewhere else. But there was one police officer that decided to stay on the side of the road. We flew by. He turned his blue lights on, pulled us over. True story. We thought we were dead to rights. Number one, we're going to miss our satellite time, and number two, we're going to get a big ticket. Well, he comes up and he says, "Y'all know y'all were speeding." I said, "Yes, officer, we apologize. We're the media." We had a marked vehicle. He knew we were the media. He said, "Hang on, I got to go back to my car." And he goes back to the car, and we think he's writing us a ticket. He comes up seemed like an eternity, but probably 5 minutes later, and he says, "You see," he had this yellow piece of paper. He said, "You see this piece of paper? I wrote my name and address and phone number. Would you tell Jim Cantori of the Weather Channel to send me an autographed picture? Because I love him." So Jim actually doesn't know this, but he got us out of a ticket that day. But that was my Hurricane Isabel story.
That's pretty good.
I always said that of all those guys you see on TV who are always struggling in hurricanes, I'm much more grounded. So,
well, there is an interesting story, and I saw this behind the scenes when Isabel came. NBC had a crew, and it was Bob Hagar was the I think he's retired now. He used to be the aviation expert, but he was doing the reporting. But they backed the van up right into the surf. They flipped the top up, so the photographer was in the back of the van while Bob was in the surf, just getting pelted all over the place. And of course, the photographer was staying nice and dry inside the back of the van. But that's the way it goes.
Oh man! All right, well we're closing in on 9 o'clock. I have one more question for you. We was talking about winter weather, and we see this active jet stream to the south. What do you think is going to pan out for the rest of January into February for the southeast, Rob?
Well, we got a pretty significant trough coming in later this week and through most of next week. So I think, we're not done with winter weather just yet. We got a long way to go, and I think with the southern stream becoming more and more active, I think the cold air, just for you, Daniel, will kind of lock into place. And the way it looks right now, El Nino, whether it's quasi, kind of a weak El Nino, I think there's still going to be another couple of instances where we're going to be sweating it out. And down here along the coast, I think we're in that ball game as well, and certainly you guys. So I think the patterns, the trends have been to get the cold air in here, just got to add the moisture to it at the right time, and I think we're going to have some events coming up before this winter is done.
If we can get that snowpack I mentioned earlier in the Midwest, I think at that point it's going to be game on for our area, just because that should help us sustain that cold air a little bit deeper, a little bit longer, a little bit colder, and I mean, think about it. Right now, we're marginal. Every storm we've got has been just a few degrees off. So all we need is just a few more degrees. That would totally make up the difference, and that's something that's totally missing this year. I think once that's in, I think we're game for here.
Yeah, I predict a February event as well.
Unfortunately for you guys, though, and I was looking through a little bit of history today for Charleston. You guys have a lot more experience or a lot more encounters with ice storms down here, and that's the winter weather stuff that we want to avoid. So I hate that for you guys because nobody needs to mess with ice storms.
Yeah, that's the scariest part, And I did weather in Wisconsin, and my first ice storm up there, and I know they give you driving tips and turn the wheel this way and tap the brakes a little bit, but to be honest with you, having been in some of those, you're in God's hands. You have no control over that vehicle. So I hate ice storms for that reason, that you just don't know.
Yeah, that's no fun to mess with. You can drive in snow to a point, but you can't drive on ice at all. It's just like you said. You just gotta trust the big man upstairs that he's gonna get you home safely.
Yep, absolutely.
I was gonna say Fred Flintstone probably has a better chance of stopping on the ice than a car does.
He just needs to put spikes on, I think.
Exactly.
Cleats.
Cleats, yes.
Or you could have Bill Belichick check your air pressure in your tires because that will actually help you guys with traction. Scott,
We had to go there, didn't we?
I couldn't resist. Scotty, we're a little past 9. I know we got a lot of viewers from our area. Want to do a quick little touch on our upcoming snow again for some of our viewers that have joined us here toward the end?
Yeah, most definitely. And Rob, please stick around.
Okay.
We're watching a system come in. It's right now over the Four Corners, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah. It's going to move into Texas and develop over the Gulf of Mexico, cut across northern Florida, and then hug the coastline in the southeast, and before it turns into, it looks like a pretty decent nor'easter for the northeast parts of the country. So we're, like we've been talking about, we're right on the line of seeing a wintry precip type or a rain type. Honestly, it's going to depend on temperature. Right now, I think if in the Western Carolinas down to Charlotte and even in the upstate, you can think of where Highway 321's at right now. I think anything west of 321 is pretty game on to see a little wintry precip. Maybe even 77. I don't know. I'd love to get your guys' intake on that as well, of seeing some wintry precip. I think if you're east of Charlotte, though, I think mostly rain event for you guys into the Triad and the Triangle and places like that down towards the coast where Wilmington and Charleston, Myrtle Beach is at. As that low tracks up the coastline, we're going to see a little wraparound moisture. That's going to give a big snow event for the mountains of North Carolina. Maybe even slide over into the foothills of northwest Piedmont of North Carolina, and maybe a part of the upstate of South Carolina as the load travels out. Then we have Saturday evening or afternoon, evening, Sunday calm weather, and then we'll see another potential storm develop Monday. And I think we've kind of put that one on the back burner. That one first kind of got our attention, and then we kind of put it on the back burner to what's in the foreseeable future for Friday and Saturday. So that's our take. Accumulation-wise, I'm really stretching it here, but I think the foothills, northwest Piedmont, you might could pick up an inch, maybe a 2-inch, in some of those favored locations right up against the Blue Ridge and the escarpment. I think up in the mountains, guys, 4 inches or so. So decent snows for those guys, and they haven't really had a lot of snow up there. I wish we had Kenneth on tonight. I know it's not been a real snowy year for the mountains, so the ski slopes will really love that, as we're really into prom skiing. So that's my take on it. You guys have anything, any ideas of what you may think will happen?
Well, I think what you said is pretty close. I think what's going to happen, the cold air will be in place, say Friday morning, which right now we're kind of expecting Friday morning to be when this could start. And I think that there could be a period of time frame Friday morning that we could start out of snow. Then the big question after that, does the warm air loft try to take over and change that over to rain? I tell you, it's so borderline, like we've mentioned. We hate to keep using that term, but it is. And if there's a 1 or 2 degree error in either direction, it could make a huge difference. So, we'll continue to watch it, and we'll definitely update it. Of course, me and Scotty and Joe and our chief, Chris White, will be on this for the foothills of Western North Carolina. But a really close call, and again, if we had a little bit better establishment of cold air, this would be perfect. But we're going to deal with what we got here, and we'll see what happens.
Like I did yesterday when I let the cat out of the bag and went ahead and said that we're going to at least see our first flakes here in Catawba County Friday morning. That's my thinking. I still don't think we're going to see any accumulation here. I mean, we've been so warm the last few days. Ground temps are up pretty high. I definitely don't see any road issues Friday morning. I don't think we have any problems there. But I will say this, that me and Scotty are going to Mountain View Elementary on Friday morning. When we get wrapped up there, those mountains might be calling our name, Scotty. I don't know. But anyway, that's my call. I think we see the snowflakes here in my area. I'm not going to say it. If we get any accumulation, it's only going to be because it snows really heavy for a short period, and then it'll be gone by lunchtime. So that don't even count as accumulation to me.
That's the classic North Carolina snowfall there.
Right, and we don't count those. They don't even count. But that's my call. Rob, I know we're out of your area. You want to make a call on it though?
Well, I just jumped on WPC. I'm just kind of looking at the probability, so I think you guys are right on it. So I'll use your expertise up there, and it looks like a pretty healthy chance of getting at least some snowfall up there. For us, it's all rain and even a few thunderstorms. So we'll get 1 to 2 inches of rain down here between Friday and midway through Saturday.
Rob brings a great point, though. If we do get some of those thunderstorms on the coast, that's going to rob a lot of our backflow moisture, so that could cut down on the precip over our areas. So that's something we're definitely going to have to watch. And Rob, we do this inter-office thing, and we'd love for you to participate because, quite frankly, I would hope you would win our little side bet of who guesses the right amount of snow, because whoever does that gets their breakfast bond. So if we have to buy your breakfast, that means we have to come to Charleston. So,
that's right, and Joey's going to buy me lunch at Poe's.
So there you go. I mean,
any excuse to show up.
Anytime you want to throw those accumulations in and you win, hey, we're game for coming down to Charleston. We'll buy you breakfast and lunch. So.
All right, that's a deal.
All right, Rob, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We were talking. I'm hoping that we can get you back on for the Superstorm of '93. I know Daniel and you and Daniel email back and forth, so we'd love to get that set up. But thank you for coming on tonight. And if you want to plug your social media, Twitter, Facebook, website, please do so. So our followers can follow you. So when they are in Charleston on vacation during the summertime, they know who to tune into.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. It's been a great night, and I'll see you back for the March 13th, 1993 Superstorm. I remember it well.
All right, that sounds good, Rob. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'm jealous that you had the 70-degree weather. So you're gonna be back into the boat with the rest of us now. So.
Yep, not looking forward to that, but it's been fun while it's been lasting.
There you go. Well, thanks, Rob, for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys. Good night.
See you later. Good night. Good night.
The Snoptimus Scotty there saying he was jealous of the 70-degree weather. Impressive.
I know. I told Rob earlier, I was like, if I can't get snow, I'm ready for it to be warm. But in all reality, Joey, and I know we really ran over a little bit, I know we have a lot of people who reviewed in what we knew about the updated snowfall. And if you do follow Burke weather, I'm hoping that we can get together soon and get something out. But I just, and call me a snow optimist if you want to, but you can't ignore of what the previous setups have been for this event. And Daniel made a comment a couple of days ago that someone in Western North Carolina could get a surprise on Friday, and I think Daniel's comment is very, very accurate. I do believe that if we can get that cold air, it's only going to take 30 to 50 miles shift east, and we're going to be talking about something.
We could be talking about snow for a much longer period on Saturday. Especially with that. I mean, I think a lot of people and you guys might have different opinion, but I mean, I think we're all pretty well in agreement. Friday morning, we're going to see some snowfall. Again, probably not cold enough to really stick. Probably not going to be a lot of accumulation. But that's when it's going to happen. And then the warm air comes in, it turns us over the rain, and then we might have that little comeback on Saturday. I've never been a big. I've never been too on board with those kinds of setups for our area. But the snow on Friday, the question comes in is how much warm air comes in, turns us over to rain. When does that happen? Does it snow from 5?
Does it happen?
Does it snow from?
Does it happen?
Does it snow from 5 and 6 a.m. all the way up past lunchtime? Does it snow all day? I mean, it's a possibility. It can happen. I mean, that's probably the least likely scenario, but it's not an impossible scenario. So I mean,
It's
It,
not
it,
off the table. And Daniel, you've done a lot of the atmospheric research of temperatures, not only here on the surface but up above us. I mean, what are those numbers looking like?
Well, it's really interesting, and I'm going to pull up
I'm
something
listening, but
here.
I'm also watching the Hornets.
That's okay. I'm going to pull it up here right quick. There's there's not like there's a ton of warm air aloft coming in, but there's a fairly wide area of warm air from say 3,000 to 4,000 feet up to maybe 7,000 or 8,000 feet. And what that will do is any kind of snow that falls aloft would then melt as it's heading toward the ground. And it's just so close that any little change in that could really affect things. I've noticed just right off of the surface, say at like 2,500 feet, there's a patch of colder air. And I have to wonder if maybe that might be a model bias of, we see this, but we don't see it everywhere else in the atmosphere. Because you got to really think about it. When you talk about the atmosphere, you think of it like a sandwich. You have the top layer, like your bread, and then the meat and stuff in the middle, and then the surface is that bottom layer of bread. It's got to all line up just right. And of course, here in the Carolinas, it just seems like we have a lot of problems. And then you start looking at topography and how sometimes you can get a bubble of warm air to try to form just east of the Alps. That happens a lot. I don't know if that will happen on this occasion, but just a lot of variables out there. The temperatures, again, while not extremely warm aloft, they're just going to be just warm enough to ruin things.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be close. But I feel like now that we're in that time frame, the next set of model data that comes out, I think is really going to be able to paint the picture for us. I think it's now over the four corners. It's now going to be entering Texas. It's about to get into the Gulf. So once that happens, I do believe that the models are going to give us a much clearer picture of what exactly is going to take place. And I know you guys here say model this, model that. It really is important because that's our guidance. I mean, we don't have some crystal ball that says, "Hey, this is going to happen." I mean, you have to watch these things, and people don't understand that a slight deviation, 20, 30, 40 miles, can make the world of difference.
Oh, I agree totally. And yeah, if we just had that crystal ball, it'd just make our job a whole lot easier, and everybody in the world would try to predict weather. But
That's right.
it's never been that easy.
but hey, for all the snow lovers, Scotty included, it looks like we have lots of chances coming up though over the next couple of weeks.
It does. Just looking long range, the storm Monday, Tuesday time frame, and then there's a storm that the 7 to 10 days out, which is totally bogus right now. But it does tell us that the pattern is going to be active that far out. It's painting another storm over our area around February 1st, February 2nd. So.
In other words, for those who are listening, or what Scotty's saying is, it looks like we're going to have some cold air, and it looks like we're going to have. So I'm trying to get Daniel's little post up there so everybody can see it. It looks like we're going to have cold air. It looks like we're going to have storms again. Do all those pieces come together? Your guess is as good as mine. Only person I know would know that is God. Scotty, you're the one with connections there. Make a phone call. I don't know, but I wonder if people who watch always wonder why I say that. In case you're wondering, Scotty has previously been a youth minister for a number of years, so that's why I always say Scotty. That's why I always say Scotty has connections. But
yes, and if your church is looking for a fill-in or even full time, let me know.
my church is getting ready to start that search, Scotty Powell. Yeah, I'll let you know that. But yeah, that's a little backstory of that. But anyway, what I was saying was our pattern. We're going to have those chances. It looks like there's going to be a few storms. It looks like there's going to be some cold. Does it happen together? Who knows? But it's what we're looking at. So I think our opportunities are going up. I think from now through probably all the way through the end of February is going to be a pretty good We're going to have several opportunities for it to happen. So
February by far is the snowiest part of our year. So.
Yes.
Hey,
It's the snow.
Sorry, guys. Hey, I've got this pulled up on screen share. This is a profiled atmosphere, and again, we're really getting very technical here tonight. Looking, this is of the GFS model, the run that come out this evening, and this is for 7 o'clock Friday morning. And you look at the temperatures starting here at the surface. It's right at freezing.
Yes, that zero is Celsius. So
Yes, these temperatures are Celsius, so you're right at freezing. You're just slightly above freezing, a couple thousand feet off the surface, but you know that's how close it is, folks. That just looking at it from a meteorological aspect, the temperatures as you go aloft, they don't really go down a whole lot, as you can see from say the surface right at freezing, and then you get up to 5,000 feet, you're only at like -1 Celsius, and you keep going up even higher. You don't have a great descent in temperature, but it's all right there close to freezing. Of course, that is for the foothills at Morton, Illinois Airport. I'll pull up, for our folks in the mountains that might be watching, I'll pull up Asheville's profile at that same time. Again, this is 7 o'clock Friday morning. You're right at freezing all the way from literally the surface up to at least 10, 12,000 feet. Of course, you got this one little area right here where you're just a little bit above freezing. So that's why for a forecaster in our part of the country, it's very tough, even at this point. And honestly, we're talking 36, 42 hours before it happens. You know, it's a tough call right now. And I can pull up.
While Daniel's pulling that up, do know it doesn't have to be freezing for it to snow. The only time for us to get something wintry for it to be freezing is freezing rain. It has to be 32 or else it can't be freezing rain. But it can snow at 34, 36, 38. It can sleet at the same time. Now, is it going to stick on the ground? No. But you can get snow and sleet outside of it being freezing.
Yeah, I've actually seen snowfall at 40 degrees. So
Now, I will say in that kind of situation, it's real cold aloft. That might be one difference, say, between this event and some other events that we've had. And that's why I've mentioned earlier, if we had a better source of cold air, this would be kind of a moot point right now. But, you know, we don't have that going in.
if we had the snowpack, I'm telling you.
Well, and I agree, Joey. That does a lot, especially at the lower levels. It keeps everything colder. I've got Charlotte pulled up here just for interest. You can see it's a little bit warmer, all above freezing, and this was as of the latest run of the GFS model. So it's really close, and I think Scotty really nailed it pretty good. West of 321 in western North Carolina would probably be the area that I would watch. You know, if it's going to happen. And, of course, your mountain areas are probably going to stay a little bit colder, a little bit longer. But all in all, it's going to be an interesting storm system to see what happens. And considering what few threats we've had this winter, you know, at least we're following something. So I guess we're making some progress.
Scotty's big smile there had nothing to do with the weather. I see the Hornets just won.
The Hornets are now in the playoff race. They're the 8th seed. They just beat the Heat 78-76.
Was that another Kimball Walker last-minute shot?
He made the winning free throw. So
yeah.
Give it up to Kimba.
Yeah, somebody call and change his birth certificate to Clutch. But anyway, I did notice one thing, Daniel, there on your temperature profiles. Notice that in Charlotte, the dew point was definitely below 32 or below 0 Celsius. So that I always look at that because that always tells me that as long as the dew point is below 0, you can get there. Because in case people who don't know or don't understand, 100% humidity means that your temperature and your dew point are the same thing. So if your dew point is at 30 degrees and your air temperature is at 34, if you can build the moisture without raising that dew point, you can get to 30 degrees. It can happen.
Yeah.
Once that dew point heads north of 32, though, your chances of getting back below freezing, they're pretty far out the window at that point. But so I always look at that. So if I see the dew points are less than freezing, I keep in my mind that it's possible.
Yeah, looking at dew point and wet bulb temperatures and stuff like that can give you an indicator of what happens when the air becomes fully saturated. And like you said, if you can still get those readings below freezing, then you've got a chance.
You do, and I've been reminded many times where forecasters, meteorologists have said, yeah, going to bed, it's going to be rain tomorrow, and you wake up to a couple inches of snow. So it can happen. We're not 100% perfect, and a lot of you guys like to point that out. And we'll claim it. We all mess up, so we can mess up on the good or the bad, just the way you look at it precinct.
Yeah, I made a post on Catawba County weather earlier. I was taking a list of doubters, so that come Friday I can say I told you so. But keep in mind, I have no problem taking it back. So if they want to come to me and post lots of long status messages to me saying I told you so, haha, that's fine. I'll gladly take it. It's none of it's a perfect science, so we're all wrong. Just remember that if you're gonna ride me for being wrong, I get to ride you for when I'm right. So that's just how it works. Scotty, we're almost 30 minutes over 9 o'clock. You want to wrap this thing up and let's go to the house?
Yeah, well, I'm already here at the house, so I'm good.
Well, that was an expression there.
Do you have a rant?
I did not. I don't have anything this week. You know what? The people who are listening, I have not had rants lately because you do not send me stupid stuff on the internet. You need to send me more stupid stuff so that I can rant more. I mean, I could go off all day long about Bill Belichick and his light balls, but that's probably not going to be a good thing to talk about tonight. So, but yeah, let Bill check the air pressure of your tires, folks, because a little bit under air can help with traction in the snow. Just remember.
That's right. Don't give up on winter. I'm telling you, February
Yes.
is our stormiest month, our snowiest month, I guess the way you can see it. And I know a lot of you said, well, everybody said it's going to be a cold and snowy winter, and we've seen nothing. And
Do you guys,
on it yet.
just to remember, do you guys remember the blizzard of '93? You know that one that we always talk about and you tell your kids about, the 4-foot snow drifts that we had at my house here in Newton and things like that? Yeah, that was in March. In March. So do not give up. It's just January.
And quite honestly, that capped off what I think was kind of an uninteresting winter anyway. So
yeah, I don't think we had much snow that winter either.
All it takes is one, and that'll take care of a lot of people's want for snow.
Yeah, that snow was deep. I think we've had winters where the total time that snow covered our ground was probably equal to the time that one storm covered our ground with the superstorm blizzard of '93, and those other winters we might have had 5 or 6 snowfalls, and it didn't cover the ground as long as some of the snow did just from that one storm. So you guys can we can get as many storms as we want with one big one, and we got plenty of snow around for a while, and you will be tired of it if it stays there for a week. I don't care how. Even Scotty gets tired of snow after a week.
Hey, I just need 1 or 2 good storms and then bring on the thunderstorms. So. I can say this. I can't speak officially for Raleigh or Greensboro or Asheville or even our area, but Brad Panovich did put out a tweet a couple of days ago. He said there has never been a winter that we've not seen some sort of snow. So. Yeah. Even if it was a half an inch, every winter has at least seen.
That is actually per Douglas Airport in Charlotte. They've had at least a trace every year that they've been recording weather in Charlotte at Douglas International.
That's 138 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
134, 138, something like that. And if they got snow at Charlotte Douglas Airport, and we didn't get snow.
I can only say we got snow if they all got snow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the record for here for sure if every year we've had measurable snow, like say here in Catawba County, but I'm pretty confident that if they got snow at the airport, that we probably did too. So.
Yep. All right, let's wrap it up. It's 9:30. Everyone have a we got to plug next week's show, which Joey is getting ready to make the event for that page.
Yes. Well, when I make the event, I send out invites to everybody. Grab that event and share it with your friends. Let other people know that we do this. They might be interested. Tell your friends. That's our selfless plug. Maybe it wasn't selfless. Please.
That's right.
Please share our
And
event.
I can say now there is Weather Brains, there's Carolina Weather Group, and there's Oklahoma Weather Show. The Oklahoma Weather Show. So there's 3 shows. Weather Brains is on Monday night, so you can tune into it. The Oklahoma Weather Show is on Tuesdays, and we're on Wednesdays. So if you are a weather weenie and you just can't get enough weather, go by and watch those 2 other shows. Tell them that we sent you. Hopefully, after I come back from Oklahoma City, I'm going to have some of the guys on from the Oklahoma Weather Show. Because, you know what? They all graduated from UNCA. So, I mean, they're all homeboys and homegirls, so might as well come on the Carolinas Weather Show. So, anyways, next week, what women in weather, we're going to be talking to all female meteorologists. They're really excited about that. We have Shelby Hayes on from KOCO out in Oklahoma City. We have Laura Mock on from WHSV in Harrisburg, Virginia. And we have on Jennifer Lawrence from the Weather Channel. Moving on up in the world, the Weather Channel. So we're going to have those 3 meteorologists on with us next week and kind of talk about what it's been like to be a woman in a man's world. So please join us for that. And then the next week we will have our weather app show, which is what we talked a little bit about tonight. We're going to have Brad Panovich on, Tim Bryce from the National Weather Service out in El Paso, Texas. And I think we're going to find some other meteorologist, one other meteorologist to come on as well. So
I may or may not be extremely excited about virtually meeting Shelby Hayes. I'm just saying.
She just got engaged, man. So sorry.
It's okay. I just said meet. I'm already married, Scotty. Come on.
Well, I know.
But
I've heard Stacy say, you know, there's the door. If you want to go on.
Yeah, she has. In fact, more importantly than me meeting Shelby, Stace would like to meet Shelby Hayes and try to convince her to take me. That's.
Stacy's like, hey, if you can get them off my hands, you go up.
Yeah, go. So, all right. Yeah, so that's our upcoming show. If anybody that has any ideas, any things they would like us to cover, great weekly topic. Maybe you're a guest. Maybe you're a weather geek yourself. You'd like to get on the show. You know.
We do have February 11th open, so.
That's true. We do.
Open week. So if you know somebody or have something you want to talk about, hit me up and I'll get you scheduled, or hit up anybody, honestly, and they can relay the message to me, and we'll get you all set up. So.
Yeah. So yeah, get with anything else. Get with Scotty. Scotty does our booking. Scotty is our agent. Scotty is our man. We figure if we figure God says he doesn't put too much on you that you can't handle, and since Scotty's so close, we just pile it on him. We just let Scotty do it all. But anyway,
the back is hurt. By the way, I don't know if we mentioned Ricky is on assignment tonight. He is actually with. You remember back in July we did a weather show about weather photography. Well, he and John Wendell, a meteorologist at NBC Charlotte, are actually interviewing one of our friends and a person who's been on our show from time to time, Mr. Stuart McDaniel. So, that's where he's at tonight.
What is Stuart's website? Is it StuartMcDanielPhotography.net? I think. I hate that I don't know that offhand. Somebody.
That's not it. Google it.
Yes. Google it. You will not be disappointed in seeing Stuart's photos. And we're really great to have Stuart that lives less than 20 miles, like 15 miles from me, maybe something like that. It's not very far.
He's down in Tornado Alley. So.
Yeah, he lives in Kaiser, which if you're not from Kaiser, don't go. Anyway, but that's it. Yeah. So if anybody has any other ideas, let us know. I know that Ricky said bigger fish on the other line, got to go, so he wasn't here tonight. But I guess we'll let that slide.
We do, and we actually. I know we're really just rambling. I'm sorry, but we do have Ari, and I can't pronounce his last name. Excuse me. I'm sorry. He's going to be coming on the 18th of February, and he also works at the Weather Channel. He's going to be kind of talking about all things weather, and then
he's also the husband of our guest next week.
That's right. Ari, sorry, I can't. I'm not even gonna try.
Don't even try. Just we'll call him Ari.
Yeah, and then February 25th, to kind of round out the month of February, is Dr. Laura Myers, and she is the social media. I mean, Brad Panovich is good on social media, but she knows all about it.
She has done. Brad Panovich is your. Brad Panovich is your play-by-play best guy. Does it all. Runs wide open on social media. But Laura is the one. Yeah, Laura is the one that did all the studying. Laura is the Brad Panovich is the player, and Laura is the coach. She has done all the background work. She knows what it's like to run social media. She knows what works and she knows what doesn't, and she knows what you should be saying and what you shouldn't be saying. So all of you people out there that have your own little weather pages, that's going to be the show to tune into, because Laura's going to tell you lots of things on how to advance your page, how to be legitimate. Just a lot of good information there. So that's going to be a good show for all those guys that we like to complain about. Those guys that have their little Facebook pages and they do things that cause problems for the rest of us. They should tune in then, because Laura's going to be the one to tell you exactly how to do your page and not be the guy that gets on our nerves.
The do's and the don'ts. Do's and the don'ts. And I think Daniel can confirm this as well. We were talking off camera with Rob before the show started, and I think we may try to get Christy Henderson on from SBA. Is that correct, Daniel?
You're muted, Daniel.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's something we're going to try to work out, get Christy with us, and see if she'd like to join us for one of our shows here in the future.
Yes, and Mike Bettis, another guy who is going to be coming on the show in the near time future as well. So I know we're not going to technically ask him about his experience out in the plains, but I do want to maybe kind of hint around to see if he could kind of relive what he went through a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think we definitely we definitely want to talk with Mike. I don't want to talk so much with Mike about a mistake that was made that day, but just things that he learned.
What was it? I don't want to know. I mean, we all are going to make mistakes. I just want to know what it was like to see your life flash before you.
Yeah, and then I think something that I've always want to talk to Mike about is his experiences in Joplin after the Joplin tornado. Those and I hate to touch on such hard subjects that I know he has a hard time talking about, but I think it's really, really important. And if you guys haven't heard Mike's story about some of the things he witnessed and some of the things that happened in Joplin during and mostly after the tornado, you're going to want to tune in and listen to that, because they are stories that will literally change your life. I promise you that. You will hear something. You will hear things that come out of that will make you get up the next day with a different mindset.
Yes, so Mike's going to be getting in touch with me at the start of February, because this month has been crazy for him. So we'll get him on the schedule as well. Wow, 9:40. So I'm out of here. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Make sure you follow our page, share events, and make sure, please give us some questions. We kind of rack our brain from time to time, but we'd love to have your interaction as well. So until next week, hope you have a great week and enjoy the snow if you see some. If not,
and last thing, everybody email Jim Cantori and tell him he's supposed to be here. That's our next guest lineup. So everybody out there, send a tweet to Jim Cantori. Say, Jim Cantori, you need to be on Carolina Weather Group. Tell him, let him know. We're out. Bicycle.